That 2020 election was rotten to the core. Let's take a look at this. Go Trump 2024.
Michigan University professor Alex Halderman demonstrated in front of a judge, Amy Totenberg, in her courtroom how shockingly easy it is to, well, actually hack those machines and to change the votes. Armed with nothing more than that ordinary pen, Professor Halderman breached the machine's security in real time, altered vote totals right before everyone in the court's eyes. And joining us now, the reporter, the freelance reporter in that courtroom, in that dramatic moment, Amber Connor, reporting for the Gateway Pundit. We're delighted to have you with us, Amber. Give us a sense. What, if you will, just sort of set up what Professor Halderman did in the minute before he actually approached that voting machine and it worked his wizardry.
Yes, so he was brought in and brought to the front. They introduced him. They talked about his credentials, the fact that he has 3 or 4 degrees from Princeton, his experience in IT. And when they questioned him, they kind of gave a prelude to the fact that they brought the voting machine up to the front, the voting equipment, and they then showed the court, this is the ballot marking device, which they call the BMD, and this is the scanner. And they asked him to go through the process in a regular way. And so he goes through the process, and the ballot choices that he shows is a election between George Washington and Benedict Arnold. So he votes the regular way, and then it prints out, and then it shows that, yes, indeed, he did vote for George Washington. Then they ask him to show the vulnerabilities within the system. As soon as that happens, he asks the state's defense actually for a pen, and they hand him their writing pen, and he leans over to the side of the machine and he holds the pen down on the power button between 5 and 10 seconds, probably around 7 seconds, and a screen prompt pops up. And when it pops up, it asks if you want to reboot. He says no, and then it asks if he wants to go into safe mode. He does go into safe mode. Then he chooses to go into super mode. So super user mode is where you bypass all of the passwords, all of the security, and anything that you do on that machine will not be recorded. So if there's a forensics audit or anything that happens after that, they will not be able to actually decipher if somebody had entered the machine. And that was very interesting to watch, how quickly he was able to do that and how he explained the screen prompts. And after that, he talked about if it was someone who knew how to write code or knew what files that they wanted to change or what code that they wanted to change, they would then be able to do so in super user mode. And that was his first example of how you can take advantage of the insecurities, the vulnerabilities of the machine. And then soon after that, what
was the reaction? And we're sorry to interrupt, but what was the reaction of the courtroom at that moment?
There was a gasp with the plaintiff's counsel. And then a few of the individuals who came in who were like just watching the case gasped. The judge looked very curiously at what had just taken place. And the state's defense kind of looked at him like, yeah, but nobody's going to be able to do that when you enter a precinct because of the precautionary measures we've taken. So everyone
actually said that? They said
no,
that they said that out loud.
No, it was their attitude towards what he had just shown, because court is part theatrics and everyone's trying to sell their argument. So of course they're not going to gasp. They're going to give a look like, yeah, but first someone would have to be able to do that. So that was an interesting theatric to see. I was mostly paying attention to the judge and her response, and she was paying attention being fair, being very observant to what was happening, and looked at like she was very much so waiting for him to give all of the explanation as to the vulnerabilities. And so he had her full attention.
So the courtroom reaction is fascinating because it had to be that. Anyone, honestly, and not on the opposing attorney team. But this is a case, just to put it in some context, 6 years in the making, and this was about irregularities in the 2016 presidential election that brought these liberals and this liberal organization to file a lawsuit. This is really fascinating because now the left is on the wrong side of this, if you will, this proposition, because they are the ones that are proving what the conservatives have been saying from the inception, that the machines are vulnerable to manipulation. And indeed, Professor Halderman has demonstrated unequivocally in court, irrespective of the rebuttal or the refutation of the opposing attorneys, including the state of Georgia, the Secretary of State, that this was done, and you could do it with a broad swath of votes in a matter of seconds. I mean, that is your thoughts about the conclusion and the impact of what Professor Halderman demonstrated about the vulnerabilities and about the potential manipulation of those voting machines.
So I would say he gave other examples as well, where he showed he could purchase a $10 card on Amazon that he could pre-program. And he showed 3 different cards. One was a voter card, and one was a technician's card, and one was a poll worker card, in which he showed an example of how they could utilize what their forged cards, and shows another vulnerability. Like with the voter card, it actually showed that someone could vote multiple times with that same card, whereas the voter cards we received at the precincts do not allow for multiple times. They just allow for you to vote on it once. And so then with the technician card, he showed how you could then pull up safe mode, although in technician card, that would show in a forensics audit unless the technician went in to change a file after they had gone in to safe mode, but accessed it in that way. And the same with the poll worker card. They would be able to go in, and it would be someone who wasn't a poll worker, or wasn't, a voter or a technician that could have a forged card. And he showed those examples.
So let me ask you a very straightforward question. You watched it, you've seen it, you heard the discussion. Do you believe those machines are vulnerable? Do you believe those machines should be used in the 2024 election? Just your own reaction.
My own reaction, I believe that our voting system has very many vulnerabilities, as well as the vulnerabilities that are with our ballots, the stuffing of ballots, the duplicate ballots, the issues that we found with absentee balloting. But yes, the vulnerabilities with the BMDs, the ballot marking devices that have different types of voter software here in Georgia, it's Dominion. After seeing those vulnerabilities play out, and, for a while, everyone was told it was conspiracy theory, that, people could hack it and that it wasn't plausible. But when you actually saw it in the courtroom, it made that conspiracy go away. And it is very plausible. And I think my biggest issue is that with the curling plaintiffs, they're pushing more so for only the BMDs to be addressed, and not the addressing of other vulnerabilities, such as the ballot issue, the tabulators, and the malware that was explained to be able to be put on the scanners, because he showed an example of malware that can be inserted on the scanners and tabulators as well.
Amber, thank you for that, and thank you for your account. We appreciate it.